Hello, I'm really glad you're here. I'm Amy, and this is Amy's Wild Cards. This is the podcast where I interview people who I think are my friends with a deck of cards filled with random questions I have created. This deck will be shuffled at the beginning of each interview, and whatever questions come up, in whatever order, is completely up to fate. We're gonna laugh, maybe cry, possibly be offended. Let's get into it. Today, my friend Nick is here.
Hello.
Hey, Nick. So I was just thinking about how you told me you were never going to be on this podcast.
What?
Do you remember that?
Was it like early on?
Maybe.
Okay. That makes sense.
Do you not remember that?
No, I don't. No.
You were like, fuck no.
Okay.
It was like a hard no.
Well, I changed my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What made you change your mind?
Time.
You were like, oh, it's legit. It's not just like two.
Yeah. No. I just, it seems like, a fun thing to do, and everyone's,
fun.
I was jealous. Well,
Yeah,
everyone
all
else.
our friends were doing it.
I think that's what it was. It's like the Little Bighorn, that idea where like they started Facebook at one college or they wanted Baylor, and then they did all the colleges around it so they can get Baylor in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's smart. Exactly. Do you want to tell me when to stop shuffling, or do you want me to choose?
You can choose.
Okay.
You're the veteran. I don't know.
I don't know anything. This is a fate-driven show.
I don't even know what like one of the cards says, so I'm like, could be about anything.
Oh, you haven't watched any episodes yet?
Not yet.
Great. Are you going to watch them now?
I'm gonna have to.
You fucking better.
Start from see the progression already.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see it. Let me tell you. Okay, I think I'm going to stop now, actually.
Okay.
This feels good to me. What happens when I die?
Do I go first?
You're the only one who gets asked questions.
Oh, okay. What happens when I die with like my body? That's a good question. I think you go where you want to go.
You go where you want to?
Mm-hmm. And
okay.
There was this definition of hell, and it was like you go where other people like you are. Like where you belong, where you don't like, you feel like you belong. And killers, that's all they know. So that's where they go. I mean, in theory, right? Like that's the idea.
This is great. Yeah.
So there's that idea where, God doesn't want anyone that doesn't want to be there. I think there are a lot of people who don't want to go to heaven. It's
blowing my mind right now. I've never realized. I just never thought about that.
It's very strange. It's strange, but if you talk to enough people, I think if you really got down to it,
yeah,
would you actually want to go to heaven? And they say no.
Yeah.
So
why do you think they say no?
Because I think there's a lot of resistance to an idea of like someone else's way, right? Like, surrendering to something better. And I think it's like the saying, people would rather be right than happy.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people live, I don't know, when you get like really deep in the hole, I know some people who they have these ideas and philosophies about life, and they're so negative.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way you could actually be happy, but they get such a juice out of it.
Yeah.
That they'd rather have that than, what if you could actually just be happy? Like, let it, like the joy.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a difference between like gratification, satisfaction, and joy. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'd say, that's probably how I would look at heaven and hell too, is you go where you align the most.
Very interesting. I love that. Along a similar line, where is God?
Right here. Everywhere. I think so. Mm-hmm. I guess like the idea of creation, like part of the idea of creation is like top down, and like evolution is bottom up. And I don't think you have to separate them so much.
I'm just now realizing how smart you are.
No.
I'm like, I like a lot of the things you're saying, and they're very smart. Okay.
No, there's like,
okay,
I do like, these interesting ideas about, because there's like, they say like the United States is a Christian nation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, well, they're deists. And the idea of being a deist is, I think, like, whether it's the Big Bang or God, like, came and he created it and left. Mm-hmm. And then evolution's the other side to it, which is like, no, its consciousness is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And I think it's more together.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I'd say about God is, God is everywhere. And there's no not God. And I think in like the Orthodox Church, they like defining God by what he's not. So I don't know enough about that concept to be able to kind of speak on it, but
Cool. No, that's great. Are you happy?
I'm learning to be happy.
How does one learn to be happy?
I think through practicing acceptance, but also it's like a practice. It's definitely it's a practice, and things that I thought I needed to be happy, I really started deconstructing what I thought they'd give me. So like maybe there are a lot of people who are car people, like, oh, I love like Range Rover. I don't really particularly have a favorite car, but do I really need that to be happy?
Right.
And I see people who get those things, and I think we talk more about materialism in that sense. So learning to be happy is learning to see that there's a value in everything. And like there's an idea, I think, in the Eastern religions, like with karma, you've been given the best hand to undo negative karma. But it's like that idea is what I like about that idea, and it's probably across all religions, is you are given the best hand for you possible. And it's like a very different way, because everyone only looks at the negatives. But I saw somebody talk about it I was reading about $1 Million Baby, and it's a great movie. But a lot of people in the disability community hated it, because at the end, it's like, well, you think, life is so shitty,
right,
being like us, but we get so much joy and satisfaction out of it. And I think that kind of goes into the euthanasia conversation, but if you are kind of a spiritual person, you do see like there's joy in God and opportunities everywhere all the time.
So I struggle with, like, I was talking about this with my roommate. I struggle today with like feeling happy sometimes. And she was like, what does that look like to feel happy? And, I was describing it, and literally I was just like, there's like an up feeling. Like I'm more, it doesn't feel as like heavy. It doesn't feel as low. It's just more of like a lifted, even like your face, right? Like our face, it smiles go up, and like my brain just feels like happier. I don't know, like expansion, and I don't know, whatever plus sign versus a minus sign. Like there's just something about addition in some way. And growth in some way, like whatever the thing is, it gets bigger and then you're happy. So
That seems like the right path, though. I think.
Is it?
I think so.
I don't know. So I feel dissatisfied and unhappy often, but I do know, like, for example, I work with little kids every day or 5 days a week. And so the little girl I work with, like when I'm like struggling, like I will try to focus in on certain things about her that bring me joy and just being present with her. And she loves to play. Like, so I can honestly just play. Like I have a job to do with her. But I do have a lot of opportunities to just play and look at her joy and just be present with her and her joy, and like let that bring me up, instead of being like, oh, I don't get paid enough at this job, or well, how many more hours do I have to do this, or it's hot outside. But it's like, so it's hard because it's like I do have those thoughts, but I'm also like, I simultaneously am having the thought of like, I'm getting paid right now to play outside with a little girl and like sing songs with her. And like, that's kind of cool. Even if I'm not getting paid enough.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I liked what you said about, it's almost like you're a steady expanding, like the steady expanding, like being up, like kind of like a lifted. I liked what you said about that. Because I think there's a difference between getting high but being elevated, and like, oh, I'm feeling, I guess it is just positive and negative.
But even like your posture, right? Like if you think about like more like sad posture, or someone who is just
concave.
But like when you're feeling like happy and bright and supported, like there's an up. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna I want to like write a dissertation on it now, of like the up and the down and like just the literalness of it. Right? It's interesting. Can you astral project?
What is that? So probably not.
So it's when you can have your consciousness like leave your body. So people who are able to do it, they tend to do it in like a liminal state of like sleep and awakeness. And you can basically travel anywhere while, like, say you're laying in bed or something.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't know that. It's like transcendental meditation almost, or
kind of,
it's
but like
in that realm.
More, yeah. And it's very esoteric, and it's like some people are like, oh, it's real. Some people are like, it's not real. But
have you done it?
no, but I have friends who can do it.
Okay, and they talk.
And then I, but they don't talk about it in like a way of like they're stoked and they tell people they do it. It's like, no, it can be really scary, and they didn't do it like. They just kind of found out they could do it, and they're like, oh, whoa, I am like outside of my body and I'm like somewhere else right now, and you're kind of like aware of it. It's interesting.
Okay, I'm scared already.
Yeah, no, it is scary. And then I saw it recently in Behind Her Eyes. Did you hear about that not docu-series, but a limited series on Netflix. It came out like maybe a few years ago, but they talk about astral projection in that. And so it came to mind recently, and I just got really into it again.
Someone you're going to have on here is going to be like, oh, I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to keep asking until like
it'll come up.
And like my friend who can do it, she hasn't been able to be on the show yet. So we'll see.
Okay.
Maybe, but like the question might not even come up for her.
That's a good point.
Aren't all bisexuals technically pansexual since the binary does not exist?
It's way out of my realm. I have no. I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, cool. What question do you not want me to ask you?
About my love life?
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any. Oh, this next question.
Okay. Well, it doesn't mean I won't.
This is interesting.
It doesn't mean I won't answer it.
Great. Would you date you?
No, I wouldn't date me because I'm like, this was the only thing I did today outside my house today so far. And I was supposed to go to the beach.
Oh, nice.
And then because I told you I had that class.
Oh, yeah.
I want to learn and gain more information and knowledge, but sitting 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on my Saturday indoors.
Yeah.
I work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 to 5 days a week. So no, I wouldn't, because I don't do anything fun right now.
So what my mind thinks of next is, because you're actively dating right now. Ish.
I'm around, not like getting around.
I'm available.
I'm
Okay, so what comes to mind is like, if you wouldn't even date yourself, how are we expecting other people to want to date you?
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the predicament I've been kind of really thinking about. So
this is why you need to do the artist way, because you take yourself out on dates every week.
Well,
and it's like, really, it was really good. I kind of dropped off on doing the self dates, the artist dates as they're called, but it helps you like fall in love with yourself, and it helps you find out like how cool you really are. I don't know. I mean, I am cool, so that happened for me. So I don't know if that's gonna happen for you.
I don't know what levels. I have to like look at a graph and see
the coolness.
See which I fall. Like, hopefully it's not a bell curve, and I'm like,
bell curves. God, statistics right now is like kicking my ass. So that's just making me. I don't want to.
I wanted to take AP stats in high school, but I took calc instead.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about this more.
Okay.
How many times?
All right.
Fuck. How many times have you almost died?
How many times have I almost died? It's probably like 2 or 3 times, but the one I'm really remembering is when I hydroplaned going like 80 miles an hour on the freeway, and it was pouring rain.
Scary.
And I like let go of the wheel because it wasn't working. Yeah. And I remember it was on the way to my grandpa's 85th birthday, and I just let go of the wheel, like, oh, I think I'm gonna die. Fuck. Like, kind of just being like, okay.
True Jesus, take the wheel.
I literally, thanks, Carrie Underwood. And I just kind of went like that, and I was just like, but this is the sad part. I think I was like negatively being okay with dying. Not like, oh, it's my time. I'm, he has risen. Like, it's time for, no, it was like, oh, yeah, okay. and I kind of like went off and like hit a divider. And luckily I didn't hit anybody, and it was just, and I had AAA. Shout out AAA.
Sure, they needed it.
They needed it here, yeah.
Okay.
Up to 100 miles, they'll tow you.
Right.
And it was like 96 miles from my house.
Ooh.
So in like out in Beaumont, they towed me from Beaumont to
Beaumont.
North Hollywood. So
Wow.
Yeah,
So you didn't make it to the party.
I did not make it to the party.
It's too bad. Have you ever thought about watching your own funeral so you could hear all the nice things people will say about you while you were still alive and can enjoy it?
You know, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't. No,
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone you no longer speak to that you would like to speak to again? And what would you say to them?
There was somebody that I was just talking to somebody about this. There was somebody that led me into program, and I would say thank you. Because while she was kind of delusional in some ways, but she like really pushed me in the right directions.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Would you go like out of your way to try to say thank you?
Well, she blocked me, so.
Okay. What did you do?
I just didn't talk to. Well, what happened was, I laid like my first boundary, and she was my neighbor, and then I basically didn't talk to her for a couple weeks, and then I said, "Hey, how have you been?" And then she moved, and then she just blocked me on everything.
Sometimes I've blocked people like for myself though.
So I think just by kind of not returning affection was kind of why I think she.
I don't understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Chiming in.
Are you nicer to people that you find very attractive versus those you don't?
No.
I like that you really thought about that.
No. Because I'm very people-pleasing across the board. And it's more of like a defense mechanism. Like, I wish I could say it was because, I mean, I am a nice person, I like to think, but it is because that's just how I grew up. Like, I get my identity out of like making sure other people are okay. So attraction doesn't usually.
That's not a factor.
It doesn't really play a part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who gave you permission?
Is that open-ended? Who gave me permission?
I realize that I make like a lot of facial expressions instead of saying words, and not everyone's going to be watching this. They're just going to listen.
Yeah.
So they're just going to think I'm just giving you the silent treatment and like no response.
Yeah, I'm not. This is my first time, so I don't know.
All of these questions, you just take them however the fuck you want to.
Okay, they're very open-ended.
Yeah.
Who gave me permission? Well, it's funny you say that because I think nobody did, and that's why I'm still like kind of. It's been stagnant for so long, and so that's like kind of something I'm learning is to give myself permission to do things, to make mistakes, to go forward.
Yeah, totally. Shoot a gun or an arrow?
I've shot guns before, so I'd shoot an arrow because I've never done it.
Great. Do you think people like you?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. What is the longest you've ever meditated for?
Probably like 45 minutes.
That's pretty good.
I don't think I've cracked an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's so, to be so still for so long.
You can do a walking meditation.
Okay.
That's a thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't say I did it perfectly, so.
But does anyone?
Not me.
Yeah, not me either.
Yeah.
Rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, and now rate your mom.
Well, this actually makes me angry because when this is why this kind of stuff hurts, because when I was a freshman in college, my roommate rated me a 6.
Ooh.
And I told my mom that.
I like how much this question is hitting home.
And my mom was like, and which is also, we don't need to go too deep into why all this is so messed up, but I'd like to think I have
mom's upset.
Yeah, but I like when, but then what do I have to 1 to 10? Did you ever? There was a movie when this guy was like, "Well, I'm a 7. What? Well, I'm a 5, but I'm in a band, so I get 2 extra points." So it's kind of like if you can do that kind of stuff, like I don't want to sound vain. Like, I'm probably like 7.
Uh-huh.
I work an okay job and I went to college and, I'm nice.
Yeah.
I don't smell terrible.
Sure. I've never had a scent come off of you that I've thought about.
I will say, though, I think I'm kind of scentless.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm too afraid to buy, like, a really... Because that's the thing. My dad...
That's an opinion.
That is an opinion.
And that's something someone could judge you on and choose.
Yeah. And I've learned to be invisible. Yeah. So, because my dad always... This is the worst part about my dad. My dad thinks that the reason why I'm single is because I just don't, like, take care of myself the right way.
Oh.
And so he's like...
That's not...
Well, are you... So every year, I get cologne from him, from Macy's. Every year, and he's like, no, you got to smell good. You got to just put it all over. And I'm like, no.
That's what's missing is the
Macy's
cologne.
And it sounds like, oh, haha. It's like, no, he's convinced. No, he's convinced. Like, no, here, Italian cologne. No, I had this one.
Women are so simple.
Yeah, this is all you got to do. And I'm like,
how funny.
And he's like, are you showering? I'm like, yeah. But he like that's what I'm saying. It's like very basic thing. Like he's just like thinks I'm. Which I don't know where that comes from either. But anyway,
oh
so I said I was a 7, and I'll just there's no good answer.
I know. It's a fucked up question.
My mom was a 10 because she's incredible. How about that?
Oh, well played.
Right? Yeah.
Well played. This card came up when I interviewed my brother.
I'm sure you both had opinions about that.
So that was interesting. I also think it's really fucked up to rate people.
Yeah.
So why would you answer that? Ooh, trap.
So I shouldn't have even answered it?
Trap.
Are you allowed to say no?
You can do whatever you want.
No, I mean,
make your own
I think
make your own rules.
I think if you were playing the game, it's like, we'll play the game. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, rating people is...
It's messed up.
It's messed up, and it never leads anywhere good.
No, in high school, I went around and I took a tally and like literally had a clipboard and asked everyone. I was in the drama department, and I asked everyone like, who's the hottest? And I made a hot list. And
That's bold.
Yeah. And then I got the results from the tallies and the votes, and then I framed the top 10 and I put it up in the green room, and then people kept taking it down and throwing it away, and I kept getting it out and putting it back up.
Why'd you do that?
Because I'm a psychopath.
They did that. That happened on...
And I made the list. I was like number 2.
Oh, so okay. So you're like, yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's because you were asking. I was like, listen, I didn't make them say that.
Didn't make... well, it's funny. It's like, South Park did an episode about that, but then that's what dating apps are.
Ugh.
If you really think about it, that's what it is.
Yeah. What do you think doing God's will means?
I guess it means to do what's best for everyone involved, but there's a certain level where it's taking into account like sovereignty and integrity more than like a gain. Mm-hmm. 'Cause you can easily say like, well, everyone should be equal, and it's like, okay, but what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And there's different levels to that too. Mm-hmm. Like, what does it mean? Like where do we live financially? What they do, or like. I'm actually in my head when you asked me that question. I was thinking of being on a film set, and not everyone can be the director.
Right.
We need one director.
Yeah, and not everybody wants to be the director.
And not everyone wants to be the director. Yeah. And good advice for that though too is, if everyone's doing their job correctly, they don't even need a director.
Ooh, yeah.
So why are you the director? Why are you the director? They don't need you.
Better question. Yeah.
Unless you're coming with. The costume designer comes and, they say, this, and this. And you go, no, I want this. And they go, why didn't I think of that? That's how you prove you're a good director. Mm. Not everyone's going to be that way.
Yeah.
But I think God's will would be like, but then I could always learn, but, as a director, like you talk to every single person on the department, they're going to teach you something you don't know. That's kind of also and that's what you also need to understand.
Yeah, and I think that'd be great. It's like being a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Seeing everyone's value.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's being a good director. And I've worked on a lot of film sets where, like, that is not always the case. Okay, final question for all my guests in our last 3 minutes. If this is the only surviving audio clip left of you in existence, what do you want people to know?
So I have 3 minutes?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to avoid to not say like things that are trite, but
sure.
I do
trite, whatever you want.
I think you don't need to try so hard. It's probably
don't need to try so hard. Why?
Because if you could be better, you would be. You just haven't reached it yet. But I think that with that being said, I've never gone anywhere new by like forcing something, trying to control everything. And I found that doing what I can is all I really need to do. And then I guess it is really about faith though too. There's like a certain amount of faith where like it's so weird how I was working on a project recently and I wanted these specific people to work on it. I kept sending to them, trying to get them to do it, and I sent it to somebody else, and they're like, "Oh, I want to do it." So I learned from that too, like find your fans.
Yeah.
You got to find that's actually some really good advice that I got from a professor that, when you go out into the world, you're going to try to win everyone over, and maybe, I don't know if it just applies, I don't think it just applies to media, but I think it applies to everything. Find people that value you and appreciate you.
Yeah, totally.
And your fans will be that way too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's really good. We're done, dude.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.